On the morning of June 30, 1908, something hit the Earth. No one saw it coming. There was no warning. At 7:17 a.m., a fireball brighter than the sun tore across the sky over a remote region of Siberia. Then came the explosion. 2,000 square kilometers of forest flattened in seconds. 80 million trees knocked down like matchsticks. The shock wave circled the Earth twice. Windows shattered 600 kilometers away. People were knocked off their feet hundreds of miles from the blast. And when scientists finally reached the site 19 years later, they found no crater, no meteorite, no debris. Nothing to explain one of the most powerful explosions in recorded human history. Welcome back to the hidden archive where history hides its secrets. Today we are going to Siberia in 1908 to investigate the largest impact event in recorded history, and the mystery of why it left almost no trace behind. Subscribe if you're new. A new mystery every week. Let's get into it. The Tunguska region of central Siberia in 1908 was one of the most remote places on Earth. Almost no roads. Tiny scattered settlements of the indigenous Evenki people, separated by hundreds of kilometers of dense taiga forest. At approximately 7:17 a.m. local time, witnesses across the region reported seeing a column of bluish light as bright as the sun moving across the sky. Then came a flash, followed by a sound described as artillery fire or thunder, that rolled across the landscape for minutes. The shock wave from the explosion knocked people off their feet and shattered windows in the town of Vanavara, 65 kilometers from the blast center. One Evenki man named Semyonov, who was sitting on his porch in Vanavara, described being thrown from his chair and feeling a sudden intense heat before losing consciousness. He said it felt as if his shirt had caught fire. At the blast center itself, the explosion was so powerful that reindeer herders camping in the area were thrown into the air and knocked unconscious. Their tents and supplies were destroyed. Some reindeer were killed. The explosion registered on seismic stations across Europe and Asia. Atmospheric pressure waves were detected as far away as England. The night skies over Europe glowed unusually bright for several nights afterward, potentially from dust thrown into the upper atmosphere. And yet no one investigated for nearly 2 decades. The remoteness of the Tunguska region, combined with the chaos of World War I and the Russian Revolution, meant that no scientific expedition reached the blast site until 1927, 19 years after the event. Russian mineralogist Leonid Kulik led the first expedition, expecting to find a massive meteorite impact crater that he could study and perhaps sell fragments from. What he found instead shocked him completely. The forest was flattened in a radial pattern, trees pointing outward from a central point, like a giant compass. Hundreds of square kilometers of ancient forest, every tree knocked down pointing away from the center. But at the very center of the blast the trees were still standing. Stripped of their branches, scorched black, but upright. This told Kulik something critical: the explosion had not happened on the ground. It had happened in the air above the forest. An aerial explosion, called an airburst. And there was no crater. No meteorite fragments. No physical object of any kind that could explain what had caused the explosion. Kulik returned 3 more times over the next decade, convinced a meteorite must be buried somewhere. He never found it. To understand how remarkable the Tunguska event was, consider the scale. Modern estimates put the energy released by the Tunguska explosion at between 10 and 15 megatons of TNT. For comparison, the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima in 1945 released approximately 0.015 megatons. Tunguska was roughly 1,000 times more powerful than the Hiroshima bomb. If the same explosion had occurred over a major city, London, New York, or Moscow, it would have destroyed the entire city instantly, killing millions of people. The only reason Tunguska is not remembered as the greatest human catastrophe in history is that it happened over one of the emptiest regions on Earth. Theory 1. Asteroid or comet airburst most accepted. The current scientific consensus is that the Tunguska event was caused by a small asteroid or comet approximately 50 to 80 meters in diameter that entered Earth's atmosphere at high speed and exploded before reaching the ground. When a rocky body this size hits the atmosphere at tens of thousands of kilometers per hour, the ram pressure and heat can cause it to detonate catastrophically in mid-air, releasing all its energy in a fraction of a second. This explains why there is no crater and no surviving fragments. The object was largely vaporized in the explosion. In 2013, a much smaller version of the same event occurred over Chelyabinsk, Russia. A meteor airburst that damaged buildings and injured over 1,500 people, even though the object was only about 20 meters across. It served as confirmation that Tunguska-style events are real and can happen without warning. Theory 2. Comet made of ice. Some scientists have specifically argued the object was a comet rather than an asteroid because a comet, made largely of ice, would evaporate almost completely, leaving no solid fragments to find. This would explain why no material was ever recovered. Theory 3. Nikola Tesla. One of the stranger theories, and it has actually been taken seriously by some researchers, is that the Tunguska explosion was caused by an experiment conducted by inventor Nikola Tesla. In 1908, Tesla was working on his Wardenclyffe Tower project, a system he claimed could transmit energy wirelessly across the globe. Some researchers have noted that Tesla made a cryptic comment around this time about being able to illuminate the sky over a remote part of the world to help explorers navigate. The timing has attracted attention. But there is no direct evidence connecting Tesla to Tunguska, and most scientists dismiss the theory entirely. Theory 4. Antimatter or mini black hole. In the 1970s, some physicists proposed that the Tunguska object was a piece of antimatter that annihilated on contact with the atmosphere, or a miniature black hole that passed straight through the Earth. Both theories have been largely discredited, but they illustrate how genuinely puzzling the lack of physical evidence was to early researchers. Here is what keeps scientists concerned about Tunguska even today. The object that caused the explosion was not detected before it arrived. In 1908, we had no technology to track incoming asteroids. But even today, with all of our telescopes and tracking systems, an object 50 to 80 meters across the size of the Tunguska impactor is extremely difficult to detect before it reaches Earth. In 2008, exactly 100 years after Tunguska, a small asteroid designated 2008 TC3 became the first ever detected before impact. It was spotted less than 20 hours before it hit Earth over Sudan. Astronomers estimate there are approximately 1 million near-Earth asteroids of the size that caused Tunguska. And we have tracked less than 1% of them. Tunguska was not a once-in-a-billion-years event. Scientists estimate an event of similar size happens roughly every 500 to 1,000 years. The last one was 1908. The Tunguska event remains the largest impact in recorded human history. And while science has a strong explanation, an asteroid or comet airburst, there are still details that don't fully fit. No fragments have ever been conclusively identified. The exact nature of the object is still debated. And the possibility of another Tunguska over a city this time is real and taken seriously by space agencies around the world. The forest has grown back. The trees stand again over the blast site. But if you look at aerial photographs from the right angle, you can still see them, millions of trees pointing outward in a perfect circle. A scar on the Earth from something that arrived without warning, and left almost no trace. What do you think it was? Leave your theory in the comments. Subscribe to the Hidden Archive, a new mystery every week. End.